The judgment chamber stretched so far that its walls disappeared into darkness. Major Thomas Ridgway stood on a circular platform suspended in the center of the massive space. Around him, thousands of seats rose in curved tiers, each one occupied by an alien representative from across the galaxy. Energy shackles bound his wrists, glowing with pale blue light that hummed with barely contained power. The restraints could hold a creature strong enough to bend steel, yet Ridgway stood perfectly still, his military dress uniform crisp despite 3 days in detention. Above him, the High Arbiter Velcris loomed on an elevated throne carved from black crystal. The creature's 6 eyes studied Ridgway with an expression somewhere between disgust and curiosity. Velcris belonged to a species that had governed galactic law for 10,000 years, and its ancient face showed every century of that burden. The translation field crackled to life, carrying Velcris's voice across the chamber in 1,000 languages simultaneously. Human, you stand accused of the gravest violation in Council history. 17 cycles ago, your species was granted provisional membership in this governing body. You were given one simple mandate: observe our ways, learn our customs, and never interfere in the affairs of established civilizations. The massive holographic display above the chamber flickered to life. Footage played across the screens, showing human warships firing on Council vessels. Explosions bloomed in the darkness of space. 3 diplomatic ships disintegrated under sustained weapons fire. The death toll scrolled across the bottom of the display in harsh red numbers. 2,000 lives lost. Yet our evidence shows your military forces attacked a Council peacekeeping fleet without provocation. Velcris continued. They destroyed 3 diplomatic vessels carrying ambassadors from neutral worlds. They murdered 2,000 beings whose only crime was serving the cause of peace. The chamber erupted. Alien voices rose in hundreds of different tones and frequencies, all demanding justice. Some representatives slammed appendages against their desks. Others made gestures that Ridgway's cultural briefings had taught him were signs of extreme outrage. A creature that looked like a floating jellyfish pulsed with angry red light. Velcris raised one massive hand, and silence fell like a blade. The penalty for such actions has been predetermined by Council law. Earth will be sealed behind an impenetrable barrier for 1,000 years. No contact with other worlds, no trade, no access to the galactic community. Your species will be alone in the darkness, cut off from all knowledge of the wider universe. When the barrier falls, if your civilization still exists, perhaps you will have learned the value of peace and the cost of violence. The holographic evidence continued to play. Human ships maneuvering into attack positions, weapons charging. The first devastating salvo that tore through Council hulls, it looked damning. It looked irrefutable. Earth's fate seemed sealed by its own actions. Ridgway watched the footage with an expression that gave nothing away. When the display finally went dark, he spoke for the first time. His voice was calm, cutting through the tension like a knife through silk. I invoke Article 7 of the Membership Accord. The chamber fell into stunned silence. Velcris leaned forward, its 6 eyes narrowing. What did you say? Article 7. The right of context. Before a sentence is passed, the accused party may present evidence that fundamentally alters the nature of the alleged crime. I have such evidence, and I formally request the right to present it before this council. A creature that resembled a massive insect clicked its mandibles together in what might have been laughter. The human speaks of rights while the blood of innocence stains its hands. Velcris studied Ridgway for a long moment. We have reviewed all data from the incident. Every sensor log, every communication record, every piece of evidence available. There is nothing that could possibly justify what your species did. You reviewed what you were allowed to see, Ridgway said. His tone remained respectful but firm. You reviewed the evidence that someone wanted you to see, but there is more to this incident than what appears in your official reports. Council Arbiter, if you deny me the right of context, you violate the very laws this chamber was built to uphold, and I suspect that several members of this council are counting on you to do exactly that. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Representatives exchanged glances. Some looked confused. Others looked uncomfortable. And a few looked distinctly worried. Velcris's expression hardened. You dare suggest corruption within this chamber? I'm suggesting that someone lied to you. The question is whether you're willing to hear the truth. The High Arbiter's hands gripped the arms of its throne. Around the chamber, representatives waited to see what would happen next. The tension stretched like a wire pulled too tight. Finally, Velcris spoke. You have 2 cycles to present your case, human. But understand this. If you waste our time with desperate fabrications, if you insult this council with lies, Earth's sentence will be extended to 2,000 years of isolation. Your children's children will never see the stars beyond your own sun. 2 cycles will be more than enough, Ridgway said. The platform he stood on began to move, floating through the center of the chamber toward a presentation area. The energy shackles remained active, but additional restraints withdrew. He was being given just enough freedom to speak his piece before Earth's doom was sealed. Ridgway accessed the data console at the presentation podium. His fingers moved across the controls with practiced precision. Around the chamber, thousands of alien eyes watched his every movement. Some representatives looked eager to see him fail. Others simply looked bored, as if this was a formality before the inevitable judgment. The holographic display activated again. This time, it showed different footage. The same incident, but from a different angle. The timestamp matched the council's evidence, but the perspective was different. This was recorded from the ECS Thermopylae, the flagship of Earth's first deep space diplomatic mission. My name is Major Thomas Ridgway, he began. 17 cycles ago, I was given command of humanity's diplomatic fleet. Our mission was simple. Deliver Earth's trade proposals to the Council's Outer Rim assembly point. We were not looking for trouble. We were not looking for war. We came in peace, as instructed. The footage showed 5 human ships moving through empty space. They were smaller than most Council vessels, built for diplomacy rather than combat. Their weapons were powered down. Their shields were at minimal strength. They looked like what they were supposed to be. Peaceful envoys from a young civilization, eager to join the galactic community. This is what happened when we arrived at the designated coordinates, Ridgway said. The footage changed. Warning alarms blared through the Thermopylae's bridge. Contact signatures appeared on sensors. Ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel directly in front of the human fleet. They were Council military vessels, their hulls bearing the official insignia of the peacekeeping forces. But they weren't there to keep peace. The Council ships opened fire without warning. The first salvo caught the human escorts with their shields down. One ship disintegrated immediately. Another spun out of control. Its hull breached in a dozen places. The chamber erupted in confused voices. This wasn't what the official report had shown. This footage depicted humans as victims, not aggressors. Velcris's voice boomed across the chaos. Silence. The High Arbiter glared down at Ridgway. What is the meaning of this? The official report clearly states that human vessels fired first. The official report is wrong, Ridgway said simply, and I can prove it. More importantly, I can prove who made sure the official report was wrong, and why they wanted Earth destroyed before anyone learned the truth. The council chamber remained in chaos for several minutes before Velcris restored order. Representatives shouted questions in 100 different languages. Some demanded to see more evidence. Others insisted the human footage was fabricated. A delegate from the mineral-rich worlds of the outer spiral stood and declared that humanity's capacity for deception was well documented in their own violent history. Ridgway waded through it all with the patience of someone who had expected exactly this response. When Velcris finally called for silence and turned its 6 eyes back toward him, the Major continued as if there had been no interruption. The Council's official report states that the engagement occurred at coordinates Delta 7, Ridgway said. The holographic display shifted to show a star map with the location marked in red. But according to our navigation logs, our ships were attacked at Delta 9. A second marker appeared, this one in blue, 2 light-years away from the first. That's a significant discrepancy. A reptilian delegate whose scales shimmered with bioluminescent patterns spoke up. Navigation errors are common for primitive species. Your instruments were likely miscalibrated. Earth's navigation technology was certified by the Council's own technical committee before we were granted membership, Ridgway replied. But let's set that aside for a moment. I have something more interesting to show you. He entered new commands into the console. The display changed again, this time showing dense streams of technical data. These are quantum signatures from the vessels that attacked us. Every ship in the galaxy leaves a unique quantum trace, like a fingerprint. It's impossible to fake with Kerr. Rent technology. The Council itself established quantum signature verification as the gold standard for vessel identification 3,000 years ago. The data streams resolved into identification codes. Ridgway let them hang in the air for a moment before speaking again. The ships that attacked my fleet were registered to the Tevin Alliance. The chamber exploded. A massive creature near the front of the assembly rose from its seat with enough force to crack the stone beneath it. Draxus, the primary representative of the Tevin Alliance, was easily 12 feet tall, with forearms and skin that looked like polished obsidian. Its voice boomed even without the translation field. This is an outrageous fabrication. The human seeks to deflect blame for its crimes by smearing the reputation of the Alliance. The quantum signatures don't lie, Ridgway said calmly. Would you like me to have the Council's technical committee verify them? I'm happy to wait while they confirm what I already know. Draxus's four hands clenched into fists. Our vessels were conducting legitimate peacekeeping operations in that sector. If our quantum signatures were detected, it's because the humans somehow stole them to frame us for their own aggression. Stealing quantum signatures would require technology centuries beyond what Earth possesses, Ridgway countered. But even if we had such technology, why would we attack ourselves? 3 of my ships were destroyed. 47 people died under my command. Why would we sacrifice our own people to frame the Tevin Alliance? Velcris raised a hand before Draxus could respond. The Council's technical committee will indeed verify these quantum signatures. We will reassess for 2 standard hours while they conduct their analysis. Major Ridgway, you will be returned to detention. Draxus, you will make yourself available for questioning. The platform beneath Ridgway's feet began moving again, carrying him toward an exit portal. As he passed through the sea of alien faces, he caught glimpses of different reactions. Some representatives looked angry. Others looked confused, but several looked genuinely disturbed, as if pieces of a puzzle they hadn't known existed were suddenly falling into place. The detention cell was sparse, but not uncomfortable. A simple bench, adequate lighting, and a sanitation unit in the corner. Ridgway sat down and allowed himself a moment to process what had just happened. The first phase had gone according to plan, but the next parts would be more difficult. He was playing a dangerous game. One wrong move could doom not just himself, but all of Earth. The door opened without warning. Ridgway expected guards, but instead saw an elderly alien enter alone. The creature moved slowly, supported by a walking staff that hummed with anti-gravity assistance. Its skin was pale gray and covered in intricate patterns that might have been tattoos or natural markings. 3 eyes arranged in a triangle pattern studied him with sharp intelligence. My name is Alara, the alien said in perfect English, not bothering with the translation field. I represent the Mineth Confederation. I wanted to speak with you privately before the technical committee delivers its findings. Should I assume this conversation is being recorded? Ridgway asked. Assume whatever makes you comfortable. I'm not here in an official capacity. Ilara lowered herself onto the bench across from him with a soft grunt. I've been a council member for 400 years. I've seen a lot of young species come and go. Most of them learn quickly to keep their heads down and their mouths shut. You're not doing that? Would keeping quiet save Earth? No, but it might buy you time. Instead, you're accelerating toward a confrontation that you cannot win. Ridgway studied her carefully. Then why are you here? Ilara was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. 300 years ago, the Mineth Confederation was where Earth is now. We were new to the Council, idealistic, and convinced that we could make a difference. Then we started noticing irregularities, trade agreements that favored certain alliances. Votes that didn't match the public discussions. Species that opposed the status quo facing unexpected difficulties. What happened when you spoke up? We lost 2 colony worlds, 2 mysterious pirate attacks. Our primary trade routes became unreliable due to equipment failures that our engineers couldn't explain. Council's support for our territorial claims evaporated overnight. Within 20 years, we were forced to accept Tevan advisors who effectively run our economy now. We learned the price of asking too many questions. And you think Earth is making the same mistake? Ilara's 3 eyes met his gaze directly. I think you're either the bravest or most foolish human I've ever met. The Tevan Alliance controls nearly 1/3 of council votes through direct representation in client species. They have the largest military fleet in the galaxy. High Arbiter Velcris has maintained power for 3,000 years by knowing exactly when to look the other way. You're attacking a system that has survived for millennia. Systems that survive through corruption and intimidation don't deserve to survive, Ridgway said. Noble sentiment. It won't stop them from destroying Earth. Maybe not. But at least everyone will know the truth. Ilara stood slowly, her staff humming as it supported her weight. The technical committee will confirm your quantum signatures are genuine. The evidence is too clear to dispute, but don't think that means you've won. Draxus and his allies will argue that the signatures were somehow spoofed or that your data is incomplete. They'll demand additional verification that will take months. They'll bury you in procedural delays until people stop paying attention. That's how the system works. She moved toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I hope you succeed. Someone needs to say these things out loud. I'm just sorry it has to be your species that pays the price for it. After she left, Ridgway sat alone with his thoughts. 2 hours passed slowly. Finally, guards arrived to escort him back to the chamber. The energy shackles reactivated as the platform carried him once more to the center of that vast space. Velcris waited until the chamber fell silent before speaking. The technical committee has completed its analysis. The quantum signatures presented by Major Ridgway are authentic and unaltered. They confirm that vessels registered to the Tevan Alliance were present at the coordinates and time frame indicated by human records. Draxus surged to his feet. This proves nothing. Our ships were on legitimate patrol. It proves that someone has been lying to this council, Ridgway interrupted. His voice carried across the chamber with surprising force for someone in shackles. And I can prove exactly who and why. Ridgway's declaration hung in the air like a challenge. Every representative in the chamber leaned forward, waiting to see what evidence the human could possibly present that would be more damning than what had already been revealed. Velcris gestured for him to continue, though the High Arbiter's expression suggested deep skepticism. Over the past 10 years, Earth's intelligence services have been monitoring patterns in council activities, Ridgway began. We noticed something interesting. 17 different member species have been attacked or pressured into unfavorable agreements with the Tevan Alliance. In every case, the victim species reported being attacked by unidentified vessels that were never traced. He brought up a new display showing a timeline. Species names appeared alongside incident reports. Each one told a similar story: mysterious attacks, economic pressure, an eventual capitulation to Tevan interests. Furthermore, 6 species that refused to cooperate with Tevan demands had their applications for council. Membership rejected or indefinitely delayed. The deciding vote in each case was cast by High Arbiter Velcris himself. Chamber erupted into chaos again. Velcris rose from his throne, his 6 eyes blazing with fury. You dare accuse me of corruption? I have served this council with honor for 3 millennia. I'm not questioning your service, Ridgway said. I'm questioning your decisions. And I have evidence to support my concerns. New data streams appeared in the holographic display. They were encrypted communications, broken into readable text by Earth's intelligence analysts. The messages discussed trade routes, vote counts, and references to problem species that needed to be handled. Several messages specifically mentioned Earth and the need to neutralize the human threat before they could gather too. Much information about council operations. A female representative with crystalline features and a voice like wind chimes spoke up. How did you obtain internal council communications? That would require surveillance capabilities far beyond what Earth should possess. Ridgway took a breath. This was the moment he had been dreading and anticipating in equal measure. You're correct. Obtaining this information required us to violate council law. For the past 8 years, Earth has been running espionage operations against council members. We've been monitoring communications, tracking ship movements, and gathering intelligence on internal council politics. The admission sent shockwaves through the assembly. Representatives who had been sympathetic to Earth's position suddenly looked uncertain. Draxus seized the opportunity immediately. The human confesses to espionage. This is itself grounds for immediate expulsion and quarantine. Earth has violated the most fundamental principles of council membership. We violated council law because we discovered that the council itself was violating its own principles. Ridgway shot back. We began our intelligence operations 6 months after joining. Do you want to know why? Because we noticed a pattern. Every species that joins the council with significant military or economic power follows the same trajectory. Within 20 years, they either become subordinate to one of the major power blocks, or they face mysterious disasters that weaken them enough to force compliance. He paused, letting his words sink in. Earth has been a council member for 17 years. Based on the historical pattern, we calculated we had maybe 3 years before we would be targeted. The attack on my fleet proves we were right. Our only mistake was underestimating how quickly the Tevans would move. Lara stood slowly from her seat. Her ancient voice carried clearly across the chamber. Major Ridgway, are you suggesting that the Galactic Council is fundamentally corrupt? No, Counselor. I'm stating it as fact. The Tevan Alliance has been operating a protection scheme for at least 2 centuries. They demand tribute from newer species in exchange for favorable votes and protection from accidents. Species that refuse face economic pressure, mysterious attacks, and political isolation. The system is designed to maintain the power of established members while preventing any newcomers from gaining real influence. Draxus's forearms spread wide in a gesture of outrage. These are lies and conspiracy theories from a species too primitive to understand galactic politics. Then explain the quantum signatures, Ridgway said coldly. Explain why your ships attacked my fleet. Explain why the official report places the engagement at different coordinates than where it actually occurred. Explain why 17 species have reported similar mysterious attacks over the past decade. Our ships were conducting legitimate operations. If there was an engagement, it was because your forces behaved aggressively. My ships had their weapons powered down and shields at minimum. We were following every protocol for diplomatic approach. Your forces opened fire without warning and without communication. That's not the action of peacekeepers. That's the action of assassins who got caught. Svalkr slammed a hand against his throne, and the sound reverberated through the chamber like thunder. Enough. This session has devolved into accusations and counter-accusations. We need order and proper procedure. Major Ridgway, you have admitted to serious violations of council law. That admission alone justifies I transmitted complete evidence packages to every council member's private databanks 2 hours ago, Ridgway interrupted. The statement stopped Velcris's mid-sentence. Every representative in this chamber now has access to decades of compiled intelligence. Communications between Tevan officials, financial records showing tribute payments, sensor logs from mysterious attacks, voting records that show suspicious patterns. You can silence me, High Arbiter, but you cannot silence the truth that's already in your hands. Right. The chamber fell into shocked silence. Representatives were already accessing their private systems, pulling up the data packages Ridgway had mentioned. Faces around the room showed a mixture of reactions. Some looked horrified. Others looked angry. A few looked guilty. Velcris's expression shifted from fury to something more calculating. Security, remove the prisoner. This session as I invoke the right of open testimony, a voice called out. It was Alara still standing. Any council member may invoke this right during proceedings involving charges of systemic corruption. Once invoked, the accused must be allowed to present all relevant evidence before any vote or sentencing can occur. The right of open testimony hasn't been invoked in 1,000 years, Velcris said, because it hasn't been needed in 1,000 years. I invoke it now. Do you deny me this right, High Arbiter? Velcris looked around the chamber. Other representatives were nodding. Some were already calling out their support for Alara's invocation. The High Arbiter was trapped by the very laws he had spent millennia enforcing. "The right is granted," Velcris said finally. "Major Ridgway may continue." Ridgway accessed his console again. "The evidence I've provided shows a pattern of corruption spanning centuries. But I need to address the elephant in the room. Why did Earth take this risk? Why expose ourselves to certain retaliation by gathering and presenting this information?" He brought up images of Earth from space. The blue and green planet hung against the black of space, beautiful and fragile, because we studied what happened to every species that came before us. We read the histories. We analyze the patterns. And we realized that if we followed the rules, if we kept quiet and hoped for the best, we would end up like the Minith, like the others who learned too late that the Council is not a democracy of equals. It's a hierarchy maintained by fear and force. So Earth's leadership made a decision. If we were going to be destroyed anyway, we would at least expose the rot in the system. Maybe we couldn't save ourselves, but we could give the next species a chance. We could show everyone what really happens behind the Council's facade of unity and law. Draxus moved toward the center of the chamber, his massive form radiating menace. "You speak of truth and justice, but you're just trying to save your own species. You broke our laws, you spied on us, and now you make wild accusations to avoid punishment." "I'm not trying to avoid punishment," Ridgway said. "I'm trying to change a system that punishes species for refusing to be victims." The council session continued for hours as representatives accessed the evidence packages Ridgway had distributed. Small groups formed in clusters throughout the chamber, discussing what they were seeing in hushed tones. Some looked shocked. Others looked angry. The atmosphere had shifted from a simple judgment against Earth to something far more complex and dangerous. Draxus had withdrawn to confer with other Tevan representatives. When he returned to the main floor, his posture radiated controlled fury. He carried a data crystal that glowed with internal light. "High Arbiter, I request permission to present counter-evidence that will expose the humans' true intentions." Who had been watching the chamber's division with growing concern, nodded. "Present your evidence." The holographic display shifted to show new footage. This time it depicted human military vessels massing near the edge of Council space. There were dozens of ships, far more than Earth had officially declared to possess. The vessels were heavily armed and arranged in clear battle formations. While Major Ridgway speaks of peace and justice, Earth has been preparing for war, Draxus declared. These ships represent a military buildup that violates every restriction placed on new council members. They have been secretly constructing warships for years. More evidence appeared. Technical specifications for weapon systems that exceeded council technology limits. Communications between Earth's military command discussing battle strategies. References to targeting specific council facilities and trade routes. The representatives who had been sympathetic to Ridgway's presentation now looked uncertain. The evidence was detailed and convincing. It painted Earth not as a victim exposing corruption, but as an aggressor planning to attack the Council itself. "We also intercepted communications between Earth's government and known pirate groups operating in the outer territories," Draxus continued. "The humans have been coordinating with criminals and outlaws. They are not seeking reform. They are seeking to destabilize the entire Council so they can seize power in the resulting chaos." The display showed message logs between Earth officials and various pirate organizations. The content discussed weapon shipments, coordinates for Council patrol routes, and payment schedules. It looked damning. Several Council members who had been quietly reviewing Ridgway's evidence packages now spoke up in support of immediate action against Earth. The vote count that had been shifting in humanity's favor suddenly reversed. Representatives called for not just quarantine, but active military intervention to neutralize Earth's threat before they could strike. Velcris looked down at Ridgway. "What do you say to this evidence, Major?" "It appears your species has been far more aggressive than you led us to believe." Ridgway had been watching the presentation with that same calm expression. When he spoke, there was something almost like satisfaction in his voice. "I don't deny any of it. Yes, Earth has been militarizing. Yes, We've been developing advanced weapons. Yes, we've been preparing for war. We've been doing it since the day we joined the council. The admission sent fresh shockwaves through the chamber. Even Alara looked troubled. We prepared for war because we knew it was coming, Ridgway continued. The Tevan Alliance was always going to move against us. The only question was when and how. The attack on my fleet wasn't just an attempt to frame us for a crime. It was a test. They wanted to see how we would respond to aggression. They wanted to measure our military capabilities before launching a larger operation. He turned to face Draxus directly. But here's what you didn't know. The ships you destroyed in that ambush? They weren't really our ships. They were sophisticated drones designed to look like human vessels on every scanner. The real fleet was never in danger because we were never at those coordinates. We knew you were coming. Draxus's forehands clenched. Impossible. Our intelligence was perfect. Your intelligence was fed to you by us, Ridgway said. For the past 18 months, Earth's counterintelligence services have been running an operation specifically targeting Tevan spy networks. We identified your agents. We tracked your surveillance systems. And we started feeding you exactly what we wanted you to see. New data appeared in the holographic display, this time controlled by Ridgway. It showed a complex web of information flow. Earth's intelligence had identified Tevan operatives and then carefully crafted false information for them to discover. Fake ship movements, fabricated communication logs, planted technical specifications that contained subtle flaws. Half of the evidence you just presented came from sources that we compromised, Ridgway explained. The communications with pirate groups? We created those messages and made sure your spies found them. We wanted to see what you would do with false intelligence. Would you verify it independently? Would you question information that seemed too convenient? Or would you simply use it because it supported your desired narrative? He gestured at the display. You chose the last option. You took our fabricated evidence and presented it to the council without proper verification because you were so eager to discredit Earth. And in doing so, you've exposed your entire intelligence operation. The web of connections on the display expanded, showing dozens of Tevan agents embedded throughout council space. It showed compromised communication channels. It revealed safe houses and dead drop locations. Earth hadn't just been running a defensive intelligence operation. They had been mapping the entire Tevan spy network. We didn't just gather evidence of your corruption, Ridgway stated. We dissected your entire system. We know which council members are being blackmailed. We know which ones are receiving bribes. We know where the money flows, where the weapons are stored, and where all your secrets are buried. He entered a final command, and the display was suddenly flooded with data. Thousands of documents. Surveillance footage spanning years. Financial records showing money moving through shell companies. Intercepted communications revealing plans and conspiracies. It was overwhelming in its scope and detail. This is decades worth of evidence, all verified and cross-referenced, Ridgway said. I'm uploading it to the Council's central archives right now, where every member species can access it. You wanted to quarantine Earth to keep us quiet? But we're not quiet. We're the loudest voice in the galaxy right now. Velcris stood abruptly. Guards, remove the prisoner immediately. He is in contempt if I invoke the protection of testimony. Ilara's voice rang out again. Under the right of open testimony, no action can be taken against the speaker until their testimony is complete and verified. But other voices were calling out now, council members demanding explanations. Some accusing Velcris of corruption, others defending him. The chamber was descending into complete chaos. Draxus moved toward Ridgway's platform with clear, hostile intent. You think you're clever? Human? You think exposing secrets will save your pathetic species? All you've done is ensure your complete destruction. That's exactly what we counted on, Ridgway said quietly. Before anyone could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the council station. Red lights flashed in warning patterns. Velcris's throne lit up with emergency signals. A communications officer rushed into the chamber. High Arbiter, we have incoming vessels. Tevan military fleet has entered council space and is approaching this station. They're not responding to hails. Every eye in the chamber turned to Draxus. The massive alien's expression showed no surprise. He had been expecting this. Council will vote immediately to quarantine Earth and cease this investigation, Draxus announced. Or the Tevan Alliance will withdraw from the Council and enforce the quarantine by force. You have 1 standard hour to decide. Velcris looked between Draxus and the warning displays. You would threaten this Council with military force? I'm offering protection from a dangerous species that is already admitted to espionage, military buildup, and conspiracy. The choice is yours. High Arbiter. Peace and order, or chaos and war? Ridgway turned to Velcris. The energy shackles still bound his wrists, but his voice carried absolute certainty. So this is how your peace works. Comply or be destroyed. The Tevan fleet appeared on the Council's main tactical display. 40 warships, each one larger than Earth's entire diplomatic mission. They moved in perfect formation, their weapons powered, but not yet charged for firing. It was a show of force designed to terrify without immediate violence. The message was clear: submit or face destruction. Representatives throughout the chamber were accessing emergency communication channels, contacting their home governments for instructions. Some were already moving toward the exits. Others sat frozen in their seats, unsure whether to flee or stay. The Council had not faced a direct military threat in over 1,000 years. Draxus stood at the center of the chaos. His forearms crossed in a gesture of absolute confidence. The Tevan Alliance has 40 votes in this Council. We control the largest military fleet in the galaxy. We have protected Council interests for centuries. Now we are simply making explicit what has always been true. The Council exists at our discretion. Vote to quarantine Earth and end this disruption, or face the consequences of disorder. Velcris looked older suddenly, as if the weight of 3,000 years had finally caught up to him. His 6 eyes moved between Draxus, the tactical display, and Ridgway. You would truly destroy the Council over this. We would save the Council from itself, Draxus replied. From dangerous species like humanity who threaten stability with their idealism and accusations. Vote now, High Arbiter. Ridgway's voice cut through the tension. Before you vote, there's something you should know. The human has said enough, Draxus growled. Let him speak, Ilara said. Several other representatives echoed her demand. Velcris gestured for silence. Say what you must, Major. Quickly. Ridgway turned slowly, addressing the entire chamber rather than just the High Arbiter. When Earth joined the Council 17 years ago, we did something that violated your laws. Before we ever submitted our membership application, we seeded this region of space with thousands of observation drones. They're cloaked, untraceable, and positioned at critical locations throughout Council space. The admission sent fresh waves of shock through the assembly. Draxus laughed, a harsh sound that echoed off the crystalline walls. More confessions of human criminality? You prove our point with every word. These drones aren't weapons, Ridgway continued. They're observers, recorders. For 17 years they've been documenting everything. Every secret deal, every bribe, every threat, every crime committed by those in power, and they're all linked through quantum-entangled transmitters to a dead man's switch on Earth. He let that sink in before continuing. If Earth is attacked, if we're quarantined, if anything happens to prevent our return home, those drones activate. They broadcast everything across every communication channel in the galaxy. Not just to Council members, but to every civilization within 100 light-years. Every species that's been denied membership, every colony that's suffered under Council policies, every being who has wondered what really happens in these chambers. The chamber fell into absolute silence. Even the warning alarms seemed distant. You're bluffing, Draxus said, but his voice had lost some of its certainty. Am I? Your intelligence network has been compromised for 18 months and you didn't know. Earth detected your planned attack months in advance and prepared decoys. We've been 3 steps ahead of you this entire time. Do you really think we came here without a final contingency? Velcris spoke slowly. Releasing all that information would destabilize everything. Trade networks, peace treaties, alliance structures. The chaos could kill millions. Probably, Ridgway agreed. It would be catastrophic. But here's what you need to understand about humanity. We've survived catastrophes before. We've rebuilt after wars that destroyed continents. We've endured plagues, famines, and disasters that would have ended other species. We're very good at surviving when everything falls apart. Can the Tevan Alliance say the same? Can any of you? He looked directly at Draxus. So here's my offer. Stand down your fleet. Submit to a full investigation of the corruption I've documented. Accept genuine reform of the Council Charter with oversight mechanisms to prevent future abuse. In exchange, Earth will hand over control of the drones and work within the system to build something better. You would give up your only leverage. A reptilian council member asked skeptically. We're not interested in holding the galaxy hostage. We just want a seat at a table where the rules apply equally to everyone. Give us that, and we'll help build it. Force us into a corner, and we'll burn the whole corrupt system down. Draxus took a step toward Ridgway's platform. You're insane. Releasing that information would hurt Earth as much as anyone. You'd be responsible for the chaos. No, Ridgway said quietly. You would be. We're just showing everyone what you built. Corruption, the exploitation, the lies. That's all on you. We're just making sure everyone can see it. The standoff stretched for minutes that felt like hours. The Tevan fleet held position outside the station. The council representatives waited to see who would blink first. Ridgway stood in his energy shackles, somehow looking more powerful than anyone else in the chamber. Then Velcris spoke, and his voice was different, tired, honest. Major Ridgway is correct. Every eye turned to the High Arbiter. The system is corrupt, Velcris continued. I have maintained power for 3 millennia by knowing when to enforce the law and when to look away. I have allowed the Tevan Alliance and others to operate protection schemes because I believed it maintained stability. I told myself that some injustice was acceptable if it prevented greater chaos. His 6 eyes found Ridgway. But you've exposed something I refuse to see. The system I helped build doesn't prevent chaos. It just delays it while making it inevitable. Every species we've exploited, every world we've pressured, every truth we've buried, they're all debts that will eventually come due. You're offering to help us pay those debts before they destroy us all? Velcris turned to Draxus. Stand down your fleet. Submit to investigation. Or I will personally transmit authorization codes to activate Earth's dead man switch. I would rather watch the Council fall than serve a system held together by threats of violence. Draxus's 4 hands clenched and unclenched. His obsidian skin seemed to darken with rage. The moment stretched taut as a BOWSTR. Indeed, finally he spoke into a communicator. Fleet, withdraw to standard patrol distance. Maintain defensive posture only. On the tactical display, the Tevan ships began moving away from the station. The tension in the chamber eased slightly, though the underlying crisis remained. Velcris stood from his throne. I hereby resign as High Arbiter of the Galactic Council, effective immediately. I call for the formation of a reform commission with representatives from both major and minor species. This commission will investigate all allegations of corruption and draft a new council charter with proper oversight mechanisms. He looked at Ridgway. Major, you were offered a position on this commission, though I suspect you'll refuse. You're right, Ridgway said. Earth didn't come here to rule. We came to expose the truth and create space for change. What you build next is up to all of you. The energy shackles released with a soft chime. For the first time since entering the chamber, Ridgway's hands were free. 3 months later, the ECS Thermopylae crossed into Earth's solar system. Ridgway stood on the bridge, watching humanity's home world grow larger in the view screen. Behind him, the galaxy was in turmoil. The reform process was messy and contentious. Some species were threatening to leave the Council. Others were demanding faster change. The Tevan Alliance was maneuvering to limit reforms. It was going to be a long, difficult process. His communication console chimed with an incoming message from Alara. He read it quickly. The first draft of the new charter had been completed. It included term limits for High Arbiters, transparent voting procedures, and protection for whistleblowers. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Earth had made powerful enemies in the Council. The road ahead would be dangerous. But as the Thermopylae entered Earth's atmosphere, Ridgway allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. They had gone into the Council's judgment chamber expecting to be destroyed. Instead, it exposed a corrupt system and forced change that would echo across the galaxy for generations. The Council had underestimated humanity. They had assumed Earth would be like the dozens of species before them, compliant, fearful, and eventually subordinate. They had learned too late that humans carried something in their bones from centuries of fighting tyranny. A refusal to accept unjust systems, a willingness to risk everything for the chance at something better. The ship touched down at the spaceport outside Geneva. As Ridgway prepared to disembark, he received one final message. It was from Draxus, short and ominous. "This isn't over, human." Ridgway smiled grimly. He knew it wasn't over. The fight for real reform would take years, maybe decades. Earth had won a battle, not the war. But they had proven something important. They had shown that change was possible, that corrupt systems could be challenged, that even the smallest and newest species could stand up to galactic powers if they were willing to pay the price. The Council would never underestimate humanity again, and that was exactly what Ridgway had intended. Retry Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.